Oh, are we? Not bad. All right. We're only a minute off. Okay. Should I let you get your jacket on? Right. I'd like to call to order the Board of Trustees meeting of the Village of Riverwoods. Would you please stand with me and say the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Ford.
Present.
Trustee Clayton.
Here.
Trustee Dickin.
Here.
Trustee Eastman.
Here.
Trustee Hollander.
Here.
Trustee Jamerson is absent, and Trustee Smith is absent. But we do have a quorum.
Good, I'm glad. Well, thank you very much. The first order of business here is special safety recognition for our fire and police departments. I'm going to read a letter, or a message rather, that I got from one of our trustees, and it'll become pretty evident why we're all here. This is, again, to Chief Kruger and Chief Dano. As a resident of Riverwoods, I want you both to know how well the fire district and the police department handled a paramedic call on Sunday afternoon on Juneberry Road. One of our neighbors, Corey Perdue, was hit by a falling tree when he was walking his dog, and his wife, Esmina, was frantic when she got to the scene. I happened to be coming down the street right when she arrived on the scene. Corey had been knocked to the side of the road by the tree and had lacerations on his head, was covered in blood, and was unable to move due to a broken kneecap. The lieutenant that communicated with Esmina about what they were doing and what their next steps would be and where they were taking him was compassionate and clear as he spoke to her. He eased her anxiety as much as possible. The rest of the crew was efficient and quick at their work. They showed how well they worked as a team. It was impressive to watch. Officer Brad Gutwilg was the first responder on the scene, quickly assessed the situation. His presence was comforting to Esmina. Another officer arrived shortly after the paramedics and was there to assist if needed. That was Officer Dennis Sears. Although Esmina was distraught, Officer Gutwilg was calm as he listened to her, and that also helped to calm her. As a village trustee, this situation gives me pride in knowing our first responders are so compassionate and well-trained. They quickly assessed the situation, did what they needed to do at the scene, all while dealing with a spouse that was understandably upset. They then took Corey to Condell Hospital for treatment. It is obvious that our first responders are well-trained and they have been well-recruited by each department. The culture of any business, or in this case, fire and police personnel, comes from the top. Thank you both for being such good examples for your personnel. Please extend my thanks to all those involved. This is important for us to know and to note at this meeting and honor those who are present. And one of the things that I would like to do is have Ms. Perdue address and come forward to read the letter that she wrote in response to Trustee Jamerson's message. If you'd like to come to the podium, please, and there is a microphone so that you can be recorded.
Forgive me, I'm going to turn my back on all of you so that I can face the first.
Yes.
I originally did not intend to come to this. I actually,
Excuse me, we need you to use the microphone because otherwise.
You're not recorded.
Will not capture your voice.
Come.
loudly too.
Yeah.
Can you please repeat your name? I will, absolutely. Good evening. My name is Esmina Perdue, and my family, my husband, my 2 kids, and our dog reside at 480 Juneberry Road. Richard had sent the letter that he was going to speak on behalf of what happened on Sunday. I had also written a little addendum. I had not intended to come to this meeting, but as such, I wanted to personally face all of you that were there, that weren't there, and just to share a little bit of gratitude for what my family experienced on Sunday. Richard was accurate in the way he described the situation. I was certainly frazzled. We would like to extend our gratitude to the Riverwoods first responders who came to our aid on Sunday after my husband was hit by a fallen tree. This was an incredibly stressful and anxious circumstance that my kids and I faced when we found him helpless, bloodied, and injured. The level of professionalism, compassion, and care that was exhibited by the team will not be forgotten anytime soon by our family. We are incredibly lucky that the situation was not life-threatening for our family, but we are externally grateful and thankful to our village first responders who were there to help us in our time of need. I would like to extend my gratitude to the ones that were present and those that were not there, to let them know that each of you are incredibly indispensable to our community. Thank you from myself, the frazzled wife, who is in much better control, for those of you that were there, and to my family. We greatly appreciate everything that you did that day.
I'd like to note that we have on record the individuals from our fire department, fire district rather, on call were Lieutenant Craig Gilsinger, firefighter Greg Dosch, firefighter Adam Walovich, firefighter Mike Shalensky, and firefighter candidate Kevin Jacks. And if I've mispronounced your name, my deepest apologies. But I think that's, did I mess it up too badly? Okay, and we've got some promotions to talk about tonight too. Oh, you absolutely can.
I would love that, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. And I want to take a moment for us all to stand and to applaud our first responders, really. You absolutely can. Absolutely.
Here we go. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for acknowledging us. We appreciate the support always. And one of our first line in our mission statement is make a difference. And that's what these individuals do, our firefighter and paramedics do every day. Working with the Riverwoods Police, we have a great relationship, and it shows just on this call. But yesterday, how many calls did we run yesterday? 29? 31 calls, and then only one had to do with the storm. So it's hit or miss sometimes, but we're getting busier, and it's just a testament to the dedication for our troops that train constantly and try to make a difference every day. So I couldn't be more proud. Two of the individuals, one is not here, but Michael Shalasky has 6 months on, 8 months, two candidates, two newly promoted lieutenants. So it's just, like I said, the testament to our training and our service to the community, along with I'm not speaking for you, Chief, but same thing. We work with great relationship with the police, even though we're a fire district, but we couldn't appreciate more the support we get, and also Hugh for acknowledging us. Thank you.
Well, at this point, why don't we acknowledge the promotions? What I have is the list of promotions. Can
Yeah.
I do this? Can I read
Sure.
this? Deputy Chief of Operations, and I'm going to mess up your names too, okay?
It's a tough one.
Okay, Eric Lavernier.
Come on, Barrett.
Battalion Chief Tyler Reynolds. Fire Marshal Brandon Rhodes. Lieutenant Mike Vitale. Lieutenant Matt
Come on.
Barstrella. Cope Beccarella.
They're very shy.
Thank you.
So-
you very much.
Just a little, can I
Go
waste something
ahead, go
about one
ahead.
moment of your time? I'm sorry. So just to give a little side note, Lieutenant Beccarella, Lieutenant Vitale, and Lieutenant Tyler Reynolds started probably when they were 16, 17 years old with us in a cadet program that we started years ago, that we wanted to capture high school students who were interested in the fire service, or some of them that we brainwashed that you were going to be firefighters, and convinced them that it is a great calling. And now look at them. We knew them as little kids, and now
They're over 21 now,
they're
right?
grown adults. Yeah, they're over 21. Oh, Rose, I'm sorry. I'm sorry too. We always forget about Brandon. So we have four of the 5 people up here started in a career development program, and it's been very successful. Brandon is our fire marshal, so I'm sure he's going to be around a lot more. He's going to replace Eric Norland, who's served 45 years with us. And we created a position. It was a civilian position, but we created it for our full-time members. So we have that succession planning that we took from the ranks, and now he's going to grow in that position. So we couldn't be more proud. This is the future of our fire district. So congratulations, and thank you for honoring us
No,
and giving
thank
us
you.
a
Thank
couple
you.
minutes to waste your time. Sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we talk about our police department at almost every meeting, so this is fair. This is fair. Okay.
Chief, can we get a photo of you guys for the newsletter? This is fine, I'll zoom in, just.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Be careful out there. Does that work for them? And as I said earlier, we talk about our police department every meeting, and we're just so proud of our police department too. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on. Next order of business is the approval of minutes for the Board of Trustees meeting July 2nd. Do I have a motion for approval? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign?
Abstain, wasn't there?
Okay, abstention. Okay, motion passes. Approval of the executive session minutes of June 4th. Do I have a motion for approval? Is there a second? Any comments? We would have to go to executive session to talk about those, so if there are any comments, please let me know. Otherwise, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, approved. The Finance Director's report, the approval of bills. May I have a motion for approval, please? Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Are there any questions on the bills? Any comments, any questions? Roll call, please.
Trustee Dickon?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman? Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, Director Vasquez, our quarterly finance report, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Presented tonight are the unaudited financials for the second quarter of 2024. I'll give some highlights. In the general fund, starting with the revenues, we are overall trending close to our budgeted target for halfway through the year, with over 46% of budgeted revenue received at the halfway point. This looks much better than last quarter, now that property taxes have started to come in for the year. Of particular note, home rule taxes, municipal sales taxes, state income, electric and gas utility taxes, and municipal fuel taxes are trending right at 50% or slightly higher for the year. I have noted in my review some taxes and fees that are paid to us directly that are behind in payments, such as the special use fee to offset costs to provide police protection and public safety services at the shops of Riverwoods property. We are taking steps to collect past due fees such as that at this time. Expenses in the general fund are overall near 42% for being halfway through the year. There are several reasons why we are slightly below 50% at this point. One of those is that included in the budgeted expenses was $300,000 for contingency, of which only $25,000 has been used as earnest money towards the federal life purchase. Director Witt and I both tended to be conservative for expected expenses from our respective departments, as we had only been in place for a few months at the time we created our budgets, and we wanted to have capacity to take on items that could come up throughout the year. The general fund is now showing a $130,000 surplus at the end of the second quarter, as opposed to the deficit at the end of the first quarter of $131,000 that I noted back in April. Again, this is mostly a timing issue, as we don't start receiving items like property taxes until further in the calendar year. In the MFT fund, our MFT revenues are trending right on target at 48% through the second quarter. Expenditures are well below budget at 14%. Thankfully, with fewer snow events than normal in the early months of the year, we had few invoices for snow removal. Although we have the early winter months at the end of the year to consider, I'm optimistic that we will end the year with a surplus instead of the deficit that was budgeted. Over in the water fund, revenues are just under 39% of the annual budget amount. For some context, at this point last year, the water fund revenue was only at 32% of the budgeted amount and still finished the year at 110%. The warmer months bring more water usage, and because we only bill residents quarterly, we should see that number trend up by the time we bring the third quarter financials in. Expenditures are at 40% at this point in the year in the water fund. However, it should be noted that a significant part of our budgeted expenses come from purchasing our water from Northbrook, and those monthly charges always spike in our July through October invoices that we pay. At this point in the year, we have spent $835,000 of the $1.7 million we had budgeted for capital projects in the water fund. Most of this was related to water main work on Saunders Road. After some review with Director Witt, we had determined that $600,000 that was budgeted for Palmer Court replacement work that was included in the capital budget was not necessary for the calendar year. However, we will still end the budget with a deficit due to the larger scope of capital projects that were budgeted in 2024's water fund. At our finance workshop in the fall, we'll have some need for critical discussions about the 5-year capital needs, as well as water rates needed to support that work. Over in the sewer fund, revenues are at 85% of the budgeted amount for the year. This is mostly due to the $125,000 we received from Walters Kluwer that I explained to the board back in April. Without that amount included, we would be at 58% of the budgeted revenue for the year. Expenditures are low at this point in the year for the sewer fund at only 10% of what we budgeted. Much of the maintenance work related to the sewer fund will happen later in the year, including capital projects such as the sewer lining that was approved by the board at a recent meeting. Over in the capital fund, the revenue for the capital fund is based on a transfer from general fund as well as grant revenue, and neither of those have taken place at this point in the year. Expenditures are at 10.5% for the annual budgeted amount. It should be noted that we budgeted a high expenditure scenario for our capital fund, so all projects may not ultimately be approved to happen in 2024. At this point, we already know that budgeted capital projects such as the Bunker Court drainage and the demonstration center pathway will not happen in 2024. Those are the kind of highlights that I noted from my review of the quarterly report.
Are there any questions, please? Thank you very much. We're looking forward to the budget workshop, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the Treasurer's Report. He's not with us this evening. Director of Community Services Report. Director Witt, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Pleased to let everyone know that the road projects are essentially done at this point. We just have one contractor that we're waiting on processing final payout request for, just waiting on final waivers to come through, and those projects that we've experienced should be done. I know that the county is working on doing the transfer of the water line from the west side of the street toward the east. And fairly soon, they will be putting up a screen barrier along the Thorngate subdivision, essentially for the length of what the final wall would be. So as they're doing work there, they want to, they're going to be removing some of the vegetation that's there. So they were trying to be cognizant of the concerns of the subdivision. So placing the screen wall will provide a sense of privacy, maybe a little bit of noise control, likely not as much as the wall, but nonetheless it'll give some sense of privacy for the residents in Thorngate as the work is occurring along Saunders Road. Just to note that the adjudication hearing that is normally scheduled for the third Thursday of the month will be continued to August. Attorney Walk is working with the attorneys for both of the respondents that were due up on this Thursday. She believes that she can make some progress in hopefully getting some resolution to these before we have hot and heavy discussions in front of the hearing officer. And essentially, since trying to gain compliance is really what we're all about, the more that she can facilitate that, I'm all for. So we're deciding, and it's been approved by the hearing officer, to move it to August. And then the last note is that as we at Village Hall are working on an improvement to the overall security of this particular building, just want to announce that if any of the board members have keys to the building, as of Friday morning, they will no longer work. So please recycle them in the closest bin that you can find. Keys are the rekeying of the building. We're looking at all the interior doors and exterior doors. Keys are only going to be issued to the police department, the fire district personnel in the Knox box, and to staff. That said, those fobs that are already distributed to personnel other than staff will stay operational, and they will be continued to be used and issued on a case-by-case basis as we need to gain access to the lobby for evening meetings or weekend meetings. So we are in the process of making this change, working on that on Friday, but we're also looking at potential upgrades to the alarm system as well as installation of some exterior cameras. So that's all I have.
Are there any questions for Director Witt? Trustee Clayton, please.
At Riverwoods Road and Deerfield Road, there's a pile of tires. What is that for?
Not a clue, but I'll look into it.
And, you know, it's right in front of the big piece of the big front end loader that's been sitting there for weeks. Is that part of the moving the water main to the other side of the road?
I honestly don't know,
Yeah.
but I will
All
find
that
out.
equipment has been sitting there for a long time.
Right. I know that as this morning, the crews were working very diligently trying to pothole. They're working on, they have a similar situation that we had with the Force Main project north of Deerfield. They're searching for the water main. So they are potholing and trying to find that main so that they can continue with the work. So I don't know if it's there to act as a barrier, a vehicle barrier or whichever, but I'll call the county tomorrow and see what's happening there. Sure.
Trustee Hollander, did you have your hand up? Oh, Trustee Eastman, please.
The other thing I'd want to put on your radar screen, since it takes a long while, is Lake Cook Road and trying to get some of the temporary pothole patching redone again, because it seems like we had done that maybe 6 months ago, but now with the expansion of the summer, it looks like a lot of those are blowing out, and also having them maintain and get the grass out of the median. I know I saw in Deerfield where I don't know if it was the village, but it looked like it might have been just the village that took care of that. Obviously, we don't have the ability to do that, but it's getting to the point where it's, kind of a hazard again. And then there's obviously the longer term fixes, but.
Right. Some of the issue with regard to that, I know we received an awful lot of phone calls, which probably never got returned to some of our residents. However, we did contact the county to get those areas taken care of. And the day that I actually got about 3 phone calls from folks, I drove by and the county was actually cutting. So, yeah, and I did get phone calls saying, gee, thank you. And that's wonderful, but that is the county's responsibility. It has taken them a while. The concern there was that with this being such a very wet season in spring, the weed growth was more substantial than normal. So when they do their normal scheduling of when they go out, everything is substantially higher than what it would normally be. But I will contact the county tomorrow and see what we can do to get them on board for another cut.
That'd be great. I mean, the grass is one thing, but more even the pothole patching, because some of that stuff is blown out as well. And it's just going to be a constant process of doing that until they come up with a longer term fix. Thank you.
Certainly.
Are there any other questions for Director Witt? Thank you. Consultants report. Attorneys report, please.
The last meeting of the village board was July 2nd, and we had a meeting, Director Witt and I, with Lake County on July 3rd. And we went through some of their concerns and concept drawings for the increased amount of stormwater detention that they need on the Federal Life site. And then about a week later, so last week, we met with staff here and with Todd Schaefer from Hager Engineering. And again, had a rather long planning session to talk about the detention that we have to create, some of the issues with how that would look, how big it would be. I mean, the county is looking for more detention. I think I mentioned this than they originally were looking for. And part of that is because they're trying to raise Deerfield Road, the part that sags actually right kind of in front of the Federal Life property. As you go to the bridge, they want to try and get it up out of the floodplain or as high as they can get it. And so when they saw that the village was involved in this project and no longer dealing with the private owner, they said to themselves, this is the opportunity we have to raise Deerfield Road. And so the size of the basin and how much we have to store has gotten bigger than we originally thought. Not that it's can't be overcome. It's just, it's part of the planning, how to put that in, how to make it look good. We also provided a red line of an intergovernmental agreement to, a first draft really of an intergovernmental agreement to Lake County to deal with their cost share and participation in the project. And the county, just a very first draft, a rough draft, to accelerate the process. And the county is going to get back to us with their initial set of comments. So we'll be sharing that with the board as we get closer to sort of a list of issues. We've been trying to target maybe a special meeting of the Plan Commission on August 22nd. I don't know if anyone told you, Lori, as the date by which we might have the subdivision plat ready to take a look at by the Plan Commission for the Federal Life site, where we create the parcel for the fire district and then a couple of lots for the balance of the site. In some of the planning discussions with Todd Schaefer, we really concentrated on the northwest quadrant of the site, which could be used by the village, could be sold by the village, could support the redevelopment of the Colonial Court Shopping Center. All sorts of things can happen there. It has more options to it than, say, the area that's underwater or that's the detention basin. So we spent a certain amount of time trying to think through some of the issues to preserve all of the options on that parcel, not making any decision about it, but just simply trying to make sure that that was in our thought process. So I distributed out to the board after we met. So we met Wednesday, went till pretty late in the day last week. Todd wasn't able to get us back his full proposal until late in the day Friday. We couldn't really get that in the packet. And I've sent that out to the board. Can't be approved. It's not on the agenda yet, but we wanted the board to see it. And we'd like to be able to sort of tell them to go forward, keep working, and we'll put this on for approval at the next meeting. That's an update.
Are there any questions? Trustee Dicken, please.
Yes, so if you recall, a couple of weeks ago, we had set up a dedicated page on the website called Economic Development, and it hasn't been updated with any content, so I'd appreciate it if we could get some content that should be available to the public. I understand that the executive sessions and anything that hasn't been approved is still pending in terms of status, but anything that is discussed in open meetings, it'd be great if we could even get little blurbs, summaries of what is going on, just as a regular update.
Okay, maybe that's what we should do, because we don't really have a pretty site plan yet that we
Right.
could share, and that's really what I think
But
people.
I feel like even a couple paragraphs here, just on a regular basis, so that we are making sure to keep folks updated.
I think we can probably arrange something like that with the newsletter or using the minutes, using the approved minutes.
Exactly.
And yeah, thank you. Okay, will do. Are there any other questions? Trustee Hollander, please.
At what point are you planning on involving someone other than staff in what the village might want to do with the northwest part of the property?
Well, there's no urgency between now and, say, the time we do the subdivision plat, because the plat will simply show that whole area as an open lot that the village owns. So I don't think that process needs to be, it's not driven by the same timetable as trying to get through to be able to convey and close with Federal Life. I think the village will have a lot of time to think about that, and it'll become, once we get a preliminary drainage plan from Todd Schaefer, and you can see kind of what is left of the site. It will, I think that was our thought, that it's really hard to see now because you don't, you're trying not to bump into the woodlands. There's just so many factors. And by the time you're done with all of that, it's easier to kind of look, okay, what is the site really at that point? And I think then it'll be fair game for everyone to weigh in.
Are there any other questions or comments for our attorney? Okay, thank you. Moving on, the village engineer wasn't needed tonight. The ecologist wasn't needed tonight. Plan Commission report, please. Chairman Brightcoff.
Good evening, everyone. The Plan Commission met on July the 10th. We discussed the draft residential plan development ordinance. I'd say generally we feel the draft ordinance is an improvement. It focuses on excellence in design before there's an approval, and that's very important. We discussed quite a bit the minimum acreage, and the Plan Commission at the moment feels that 25-acre minimum is appropriate rather than the 9-acre minimum that was in the draft. And in addition, I have submitted sustainability provisions that I would like to see added to the draft ordinance. So that's where we are at the moment. We'll further discuss on August the 1st at our next meeting.
Are there any questions for our chair? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Zoning Board of Appeals, Chair Greider, please.
Well, the last scheduled meeting of the ZBA didn't happen for lack of an applicant. Unfortunately, he didn't respond. Director Witt tried to get hold of him multiple times, and when he didn't come, we decided there was really no reason for us to have a meeting. In your packet, however, you have my report on, see, what was the address? It was 1965 Saunders Road. These are applicants who put in an application to put in a garage which goes into the side yard by about 20 feet. The truth of the matter is that their house also goes into the side yard about 20 feet because their lot is only, well, put it this way, if you take two 40-foot side yards away, what they've got left is 21 feet. They can't build behind the house because it's wetland, literally almost up to the house. So the only place that a garage can be placed is in front of the house and kind of to the side, but parallel with one end of the house. After speaking to them, we did agree that it was a hardship not to have a garage. It was interesting that, one, no trees will be taken out. Two, the garage will be built with the same materials that the house is so that it will blend. It was a unanimous decision of the ZBA that the variance be granted.
Are there any questions for our chair? Hey, I believe that ordinance is in new business, so we will be.
It is.
We'll be talking about it again in just a bit. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Police report, Chief.
Yes, the police activity is in the board packet. A couple other items that I wanted to mention. We had another successful use of our flock license plate reading cameras. On July 6, we had residents report that 2 mailboxes were struck and damaged in the 200 block of Portwine. The officers responding located a passenger side mirror on the ground and were able to determine that it was from a Nissan Murano. Utilizing the flock cameras, the officer was able to determine the license plate of the involved vehicle by comparing a before picture of the Nissan Murano as it entered Riverwoods with the side view mirror intact, and then finding it again entering Elk Grove Village later that night after the crash, and seeing that the side view mirror was broken off. Upon the continued investigation, the officers determined that the same vehicle was involved in another hit and run crash in Elk Grove Village, in which the registered owner was arrested for DUI. So the officers coordinated with the Elk Grove Village Police Department and determined who was a passenger at the car at the time of the DUI arrest, and found that it was a Riverwoods resident. And after interviewing the Riverwoods resident, it was determined that that person witnessed the driver hitting the mailboxes here in Riverwoods. And that led to officers issuing several citations to the driver of the vehicle related to the hit and run on the mailboxes. So just another successful use of the cameras. Additionally, I wanted to let the board know about some protest activity that's been occurring at Orphans of the Storm that I think you probably all saw in your email last Friday. So on Friday, we responded to Orphans of the Storm on a report of protesters blocking traffic on Saunders. So when we arrived, I spoke to the organizers, and they agreed to move off of the street and onto the parkway. And they were on the parkway on the Riverwoods entrance side, the main entrance, and also on the Saunders side. And we monitored them for the time that they were there for a few hours, and they were peaceful. We had good relations with the organizers. It's related to a employee management labor dispute. And so it was some of the employees and their supporters. They came again this morning, same thing. They stayed on the parkway, and we monitored things. They were peaceful, and I'm not sure how much longer it's going to continue. Management is talking to them. We do have other resources through our mutual aid should we need more resources, but that hasn't happened yet, and I'm hopeful that it won't. And that's all I have.
Are there any questions for our chief? I was going to say this is a testament to your ability to mediate problems. And there were a lot of people involved, and it's to your credit that things have stayed as calm and peaceful as they have. We thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on. Fire District Report. Chief Kruger, anything more? No, we're glad to have you in. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you. Information and comments from the president. I'd like to report on the status of the South Lake Mosquito Abatement District, which is one of the favorite entries on my tax bill, $28 a year. Trustee Eastman and I have been going to those meetings, those board meetings. A number of months ago in the press, it was reported that the members of the board have been replaced by newer members. Our member, Roger Simonson, has resigned due to personal issues. He has not yet been replaced. We have been pushing for that replacement. Rich Kumjian, I think that I mentioned a couple of meetings ago, has volunteered to be appointed to that position. That is going nowhere fast. Rich attended of his own free will and came to the last board meeting, the last mosquito abatement board meeting that I attended, and he came to get a feel for the board and understand what was going on, which was really wonderful. At that board meeting, it was kind of interesting because we had brought to the board chair and the attorney's attention that they were subject to what's called a decennial committee. And that's a report to the government every 10 years of what they're doing, budgeting, and so forth. In our audience is Laura Trevino, who is actually a member of our fire district's decennial committee. So I have asked Laura if she would volunteer to be a member of this South Lake mosquito abatement. I'm not, yeah. And so she's volunteered to do that because it appears that we only have until the end of this year to get this work done. And the decennial committee for the South Lake Mosquito Abatement District has yet to be determined. It was brought up at the last meeting, but it wasn't determined. This committee, and you all know more than I do about this, but has to meet 3 times. There is a report that needs to be generated. And this board only meets once a month and will not meet in December, or historically has not met in December. So there's a lot of, and I will say it, I think there's a lot of foot dragging here, and perhaps they have not been advised as well as they could be in these matters. So I will be speaking with the chair of that board on Friday and trying to move things forward. Rich, not being an appointed member, has volunteered to be one of 2 resident members of the committee. And if Laura hadn't volunteered, I was to be the other. And I think that might be spreading me a little thin. So both Trustee Eastman and I have been in touch with our representative, Ann Main, to help press this matter forward. There are politics involved, as you might guess. It doesn't seem to be a simple matter for a district that does so much good, and has so little expense on the tax bill. We do not want to see it dissolved. We do not want to see it marched into oblivion. We want our place on the board, and we want to continue this. So it's a shame, is I think the words that I can say, how this has been operated. Our thanks to Clark, who is really the driving force here. And they perform all of the duties, all of the testing, all of the spraying, all of the distribution of larvicide, and all of those kinds of things. We've had in the newsletter a couple of times that if you see standing water, if you see swarms, if you have dead birds, there's a portal you can reach Clark, and they will come out and take care of that. So again, we're trying very hard to move this forward. We're trying very hard to make sure it continues to exist. And it could well be in the near future that we come to you with a request for more action, and I don't know what that can possibly be at this point. But we'll keep you informed of that because I believe it's important to Riverwoods to continue this service. Failing that, people end up hiring their own mosquito abatement people and spraying their own yards and all that sort of thing. And that's not necessarily a positive for our woodland environment and for the ecology of the area. So if you have any comments or questions, I'd be happy to hear it. Otherwise, we will keep you informed, and we're going to stay involved. We're going to keep going to those board meetings, so we will not be ignored. Okay, there are challenges, certainly. Okay, moving on. New business. First item of new business is the approval of a proposal by GHA for fire hydrant maintenance in an amount not to exceed $19,650. Director Witt, can you please lead us through this?
Certainly, Mayor. So this proposal is from Gewalt Hamilton. This is an annual task that is done for the maintenance of the fire hydrants in our water distribution system. What is critical and is handled under this particular proposal is the flushing and verification that the barrels of the fire hydrants actually do drain, to make sure that they actually do drain and don't hold water, because during the winter months, that water that gets trapped inside the barrels can freeze and actually crack the hydrant. And that when the fire district needs to use the hydrant, it's not functional. So this is one of the two proposals in front of you tonight. With regard to the hydrants, it's a very critical piece. There are 393 fire hydrants that will be flushed and verified on the drainage as part of this program. I know that the proposal on both of these have timeframes that probably are already passed, but GHA is going to get both projects taken care of yet this fall. Of particular note, the fee that Gewalt is proposing for these, this is a unit-based fee. What they are proposing for 2024 is the same rate that they were working with in 2020.
Are there any questions for our director? May I have a motion for approval? Oh, Trustee Hollander.
Maybe I should know this, but I don't. Is the village completely covered with fire hydrants in all the appropriate locations, or are there sections of the village that are not?
No, we have many sections of the village that don't have water main. Essentially, you take a look at all the properties that don't connect to Lake Michigan water don't have fire hydrants associated with their neighborhood. But that's been an ongoing discussion point about the tremendous cost as years go by, that every year that the projects go by don't occur in bringing Lake Michigan water into the village, those costs just continue to skyrocket. So it'll be at some point in time infeasible to do it, and we also have neighborhoods that just don't want to get off the wells.
Trustee Clayton, please.
More question for Tony. Does this get charged against the water fund?
I will have to double check where we've put it, but this seems that it would be a part of the water fund activities.
Trustee Hollander, please. Yes.
Can we make the approval dependent upon this being charged against the water fund?
Appropriate categorization. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With that in mind, I'll move for approval.
Is there a second?
Is that approval for the first contract, the fire hydrant?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions? Trustee Hollander?
Is that assuming this is going to be charged against the water fund? I didn't hear that as part of the proposal.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander? Aye. Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickon? Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, next on the agenda is an approval of a proposal by GHA for valve excising, no, that's not the right word, excising, right?
No,
Exercising?
exercising.
Okay, in an amount not to exceed $6,650, please.
All right, and this proposal goes essentially hand in hand with the one that was just approved. There's a total of 265 valves on the main water distribution line. The proposal is for doing 50% of those valves, and this is how GHA has structured this in previous years. They take 50% of these valves and they actually turn them on, turn them off, turn them on, turn them off, make sure that they're actually working, that they actually do shut, and we don't have a loss of water through the hydrants, because if the valves don't work properly, the water is getting into the barrel and then it just seeps out, and we don't capture a fee for that loss of water. So this is important not only from a budgetary perspective, but it also, again, just make sure that we don't have water inside the hydrants that freeze over the winter, and also make sure that the valves are going to work at a point in time where the fire district really needs to rely on them. So again, just point of clarification, the unit price cost that GHA is proposing for this is the same unit price cost as what they did, the same project, the same scope back in 2020.
Are there any questions? I see a motion for approval with the appropriate charge to the appropriate fund.
Same motion, same condition. Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickon?
Aye.
And Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next is an approval of an ordinance granting a variation under the Riverwood zoning ordinance for 1965 Saunders Road. Do I have a motion for waive first reading?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Do I have a motion for second reading and approval, please?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on this? Okay, seeing no discussion, may I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Clayton?
Aye.
Trustee Dickon?
Aye.
Trustee Eastman?
Aye.
Trustee Hollander?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay,
Ordinance number 240711.
no old business this evening. Visitors wishing to address the board. Oh, all right. Who wants to go first? It's, you know.
Catherine Romanelli, 2314 Glen Eagles. Just a quick comment. I want to thank the mayor on behalf of the 305 Thorngate residents for your work with the mosquito abatement. This came up about a year ago or so that it might be disbanded. And I remember you were vocal at the time that the village wanted this to stay. And your efforts are noted. Being on the board for Thorngate, if the village didn't participate in this, we'd be getting a lot of homeowners wanting to know what we're doing. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that. And we might be calling on you to help us at some point. Yes. Thank you. Randy, did you?
Randy Yaffe, 7 Foxtail Court, Meadow Lake. I just want to go on record, and I appreciate Trustee Hollander for bringing up things about, like, obviously, the fire station is going to be contiguous, obviously, to Meadow Lake. And it was the first I heard that in terms of the elevation change. And obviously, everybody's very cognizant being in the flood area and what you can do and what you can't do in a flood area. The water's got to go somewhere. So obviously, it's not like a footprint of a home, you know, it's going to be a lot larger than that. And if in fact you are going to raise that up, that water is going to have to go somewhere. And I know you were saying that there's going to be some added areas where the water is going to go. And I know it might be premature right now to talk about it, but I just wanted to make sure that I'm on the record just saying that I'm just concerned. The residents that I talked to seem to be very positive towards this, and I'd like to stay that way. And I'm assuming that you're just going to do your due diligence, obviously, when we go through this, that you're, again, being cognizant that this water's going somewhere. And what, like Trustee Hollander said, you know, it'd be nice when that time comes, that maybe some other people would be involved so we can see what's going on.
Once we have some plats and once these kind of things have, been worked out, certainly we're certainly going to want people to be able to see what we're talking about. That will come before the board, but certainly Meadow Lake, because you are so on point, you're right there. We're very concerned about that. Through these discussions, that's always been up front.
And I know it's early, but I've always rather.
It is early.
I'd rather come to the party early than late, right? So, thank you. I appreciate your
Gotcha.
time.
Are any other comments from?
Esmina Purdue at 480 Juneberry Road. Since the incident that happened on Sunday, a week ago Sunday, I've been hypervigilant about my walks throughout the neighborhood, as you can imagine. The walk that we typically take is between Juneberry down to Orange Brace and then around Thorn Meadow, and then we cross over the bridge by the Jamerson property. Over the last week or so, I have noted a significant amount of trees that are dead along the walkway. The tree that hit my husband was not a healthy tree. That tree was dead and had been dead for quite some time. We've been here for about 10 years and we've had perfectly healthy trees just out of nowhere come down. So those are random surprises. The trees that are dead on properties, we don't care if they fall on our property, it's our responsibility, but the trees that are along the walkway are really dangerous for the residents. This was a perfect example of one of those episodes. I don't know why that tree fell down at that specific moment that my husband was walking with our dog. However, I will say that with the increase in moisture and rain, perhaps the ground gave way and it was just a perfect opportunity for that to happen. In years past, I can't recall if it's been 2 or 3 years, but we've had the village do walks and mark trees that are dead along the walkway so that owners know that they have to take them down. That hasn't happened in a couple of years. I'd like to address the village and encourage them to prioritize the safety of the residents. There are approximately 25 children and their families that live in that circle alone. 2 of those children are mine. And knowing that they take these walks with their families is very concerning. I'd love to know what that policy is. I would love to encourage the village to maintain healthy trees along that walkway. We can't tell our neighbors to chop their dead trees down, but I do believe there's ordinances in the village that require residents to maintain the safety of the neighborhood and by chopping their trees down.
Toward that end, certainly since that's happened and even before, because if you note in our backyard right here, we've got the pathway closed because there's some, I don't know when and I don't know how, but we're going to get them down. It's just a question of time, but so people don't. The issue of discussion about hazardous trees has come up, and we're planning to meet with our forester on hopefully Monday, Tuesday next week. We're working that out, but it's been top of mind. So I appreciate your comments and I appreciate what, your family has been through.
Thank you. Thank you so much for placing a priority on this. I think it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming and
It's my
honoring
pleasure.
our first responders.
Talk about a good situation. We're very fortunate. My husband will be okay and our kids will deal with the trauma slowly, but Dad's going to be okay. So the dog is traumatized, so we're working on that, but one step at a time.
It's hard to explain to dogs. Totally. Thank you for coming.
Mayor,
Trustee Hollander.
I believe the village has a program regarding hazardous trees along the roadways, and if they're within a certain distance, they're tagged and marked, and either the residents are responsible for taking them down or the village takes them down and then back charges the residents. I have no idea whether this tree was marked or not marked.
Yeah.
I don't think it would be wise to necessarily find out now. But
2021.
it is an ongoing program, and I think that it would be worthwhile noting that we do that every few years.
Yeah, the last time we did it was 2021. And that's, you're pointing out.
Yeah, I'll give you a little flavor for this. We have done it periodically. We just went back after this happened to say, well, how long has it been? It was in 2021. So the process in this village of walking all the streets and marking the trees, that takes several months. The ideal time to take down the trees is in the winter. So when we start doing this, it turns into a project of 9 months or a year. So if we start in the fall, which is what we're going to be meeting with the forester to think about, maybe we'll do another survey. It's a process of doing it. And then, of course, what would really be helpful is if the associations, we sort of talked about this, would also communicate with residents, because independent of what the village says, each individual owner has a responsibility to survey their trees. It's hard for the village to survey the whole village, as often as you might like. And then we had, even in that area, we had residents who contested that their trees were in imminent danger because they were dead, but who knows when they were going to fall. And that also delayed us, because then we had to deal with, so we have, I'm not making excuses. I'm just pointing out that it's a process that we go through, and we'll go through it again. And the more cooperation we get, and this is a great opportunity from residents, the smoother it goes.
Thank you for bringing that point up. In the past week or so, had I had a marker, I probably would have spared us a savings of 7 months' time and could have marked all the dead trees that were in the walkways. So I'm also a member of the board for the Vernon Woods Owners Association, and I certainly will talk to Rick. I'm not too sure what our involvement is in encouraging the residents and what we can do as an association, but we'll certainly play into it. I find it difficult to understand that it would take approximately 9 months to walk the roads and mark those trees. It seems kind of extravagant that it would take 9 months.
Not to mark, but to identify them, and then to communicate to the owners, and then to give the owners their first notice, and then their second notice.
Sure.
And all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I think it's a big liability for the village to allow that to just slide and on the wayside. And I appreciate the fact that there's going to be attention paid to this, but this has to be attention on a regular basis, whether there's a schedule of calendar that we adhere to. It can't just become a moment of awareness after an incident that happened a week and a half ago. It has to be an ongoing process, because trees die. They just do.
Yeah, I mean,
Trustee Dickens.
So on top of the formal program that we have with a tree removal company that does take 7 months with multiple notices, would it make sense to perhaps set up a self-reporting portal where residents could say, hey, I'm usually walk down this path and there's a tree that's leaning and I find this to be a hazard. I don't want to ruin my relationship with my neighbor, but perhaps you guys could log it with all the other trees that you might be removing in 7 months.
Well,
It's an easy form to set up.
the last time that the last time that we did this, we tried something new. We tried arranging with one contractor to be available for everyone to contract with individually. We tried to get unit rates. I think that was successful to some extent until towards the end. I think the contractor was growing tired of dealing with our residents, as you can imagine, and our residents were getting tired of dealing with the contractor. In years past, we've done this on average, I'm going to say about every 4 to 5 years. I'm thinking maybe I'd have to go back historically. I don't recall a hazardous tree survey. It has been a regular feature for many years. And this year, I guess when we do it, that's one of the things we'll have to talk about is there a better way to do it than telling people, here's the trees we found, go find yourself a contractor, tell us when you're going to remove it. You have so many days to remove it. We'll follow up with a second notice. If you have any suggestions, let us know, because it's one of those things where you just have to keep after it a lot.
It is. The last time that it was done, we had trees on our walkway along our property that were marked, and we understood that you have until this time to take this tree down. If you don't, then the village will take it and you will be billed for it. That tree went down. We took responsibility and accountability for doing that. And I think that that falls certainly on the resident, but I think it's an important responsibility for the village to remind the residents in whatever way, if we need to knock on their doors, if we need to get a hold of them, they have a responsibility to the safety of those roads by maintaining their trees. You can't tell if a healthy tree is going to come down. That's a random act, but dead trees, it's just a matter of time. So those are pretty obvious. So it does fall on the owners to take responsibility. If they're not, then the village has to, step in and do something about it. We can't risk something like this happening again. So thank you.
More information to follow.
Yeah,
More
I
information to
appreciate
follow.
that. It's reassuring to know. Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to address the board this evening? A second, Randy. There we go.
Yes, Randy Merrill, RPC, and I apologize, I'm a little tardy, so if anything I'm going to talk about has sort of been covered a little bit, but one of our members on RPC had noticed that a neighbor was taking down some trees, and it was over at like Port Wine and Riverwoods Road. The resident lives on Hoffman and Port Wine, and I told her, immediately call, I think she called Director Witt on this. And one of the things I thought about that could really play into what Asmina is talking about, that maybe through our newsletters, and particularly our RPC newsletter, is do something like a neighborhood watch. And if you hear somebody taking down a number of trees, I'm not saying one chainsaw going on, or you see those dead trees on the parkway, maybe this would be a really good outlet to say, we're asking for you to be, good neighbors and do a watch for this. And also, so you don't get a lot of calls regarding, these people have a permit to take down the trees. Could there be a sign like in the front of the house or a driveway that alerts us as neighbors that there is a permitted tree removal process going on, and when that's complete, you remove the sign. But that way, we won't all be calling and saying, oh, I hear a chainsaw over there on Greenbrier, I hear that there might be something that at least we know that they've received a permit.
I think, the posting of a permit or something is a good question. I don't think frankly neighbors have any hesitancy calling us and telling us about other things happening
And one
around
bigger than the window of the door. I know I post mine on my door, but who can see it?
Yeah.
It is a good point. In a lot of construction, and a lot of communities, permit cards are required to be posted in windows or conspicuous spaces. I don't think that works well in Riverwoods, considering the setbacks that we have on many homes that you can't drive by and see that. However, we could take a look at some kind of notification that maybe goes posted on a mailbox or something near it, or however that may be. We've done that successfully with new construction, where there's concern over development on a property, where we would go so far, not in this community, but a previous community I worked for, where we would actually post signs on the property that would let people know exactly what the development is occurring, so that they would be able to see, hey, here's my plan, here's the scope of work, in essence, a very succinct scope of work, not a lot of details on it, but nonetheless, passersby could see what the scope is, see what's happening on site. That seems to take a lot of the phone calls away. So, and I appreciate your concern of trying to nip in the bud the necessity of neighbors calling about work happening in the area. I know the particular case that you're talking about, but I won't get into that, here, but I can talk to you about it after. The thought of trying to figure out a way to do that is good. It's just a matter of, it's another step And how do we really realistically do that? Because even if you post something at somebody's mailbox where you know you're going to have that at every house, every box is different. And coming up with a method of posting that works across the village is the piece that we have to be creative on. So point well taken. Some kind of notice might help reduce calls, but on the other hand, we respond to the calls we get.
Sure. Just think even like a simple garage sale sign, one of those, 18 by 24 or something, just a thought.
Oh, thank you. Anything to help with reducing calls, right? Okay, no need to go into executive session tonight. The next date and time for our board meeting is Tuesday, August 6th, here at 7:30. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you very much.